Greetings everybody, my name is Tommy the Keyblade Master and welcome to my channel. It's time for another one of my story analysis videos. I just reviewed Tales of Symphonia and now I'm going to go and take a deeper look at its plot. If you're just interested in the game, click on the card that I'm going to put up on top and go check out my review. However, if you want a little bit more insight on what I thought of the plot, then stay tuned. Now, I will warn you, there will be plot spoilers in this video. That should be a no-duh, and some of them are going to be big. But if you want to know my opinion sometimes on this game, why I like the story or not, I have to go into them. So just be prepared for that. If you don't want to have the plot spoiled, you shouldn't be watching this video. Anyways, let's get started. The basic plot goes like this. It starts off with this long narration done by Cam Clark, who plays the voice of Kratos in this. If you don't know who Cam Clark is, then you obviously didn't watch the 1980s Ninja Turtles cartoons, because he voiced Leonardo in that.
In order to take its place, grieving over the loss, the goddess...
Anyways, he narrates that a long time ago there was a great war that destroyed the giant Carlon tree, which was the source of all life for the planet of Silverant. Since then, man has kind of been low, and the goddess of the place, Martel, occasionally goes to sleep, and when that happens, all hell breaks loose as evil creatures called Desians pop up and basically enslave the people. The only way to get rid of the Desians is for a chosen one to take a quest, become an angel, and go up and awaken Martel. We then meet our hero Lloyd, voiced by Scott Menville.
Ah!
How do you manage to sleep standing?
Oh, Professor Rain, is class over?
Of course, everybody knows Scott Menville from his most famous part ever, playing Red Herring on The Pup Named Scooby-Doo. He also played some bird boy based off some Teen Giant show that I'm pretty sure no one heard of. Alright, yes, I'm trolling you. I love Teen Titans unless the word go is put at the end of it. But anyways, yeah, Scott Menville does a really good job of Lloyd. It's one of the reasons why he's such a memorable character. Even though Robin is kind of the genius leader, Lloyd's a little bit of a dummy who sometimes jumps in before thinking, but that's kind of done in an admirable way. He usually does what he thinks is right and screw the consequences later. And that's good and bad. Like I said, all these characters are well developed. It's a Tales game, and the characters really do come front and center, and I'll lead you more into that because the plot in this one is really weak. Anyways, Lloyd's best friend Colette is the chosen one, and she's starting out on her journey of world regeneration. A few things happen at the temple, causing Lloyd to have to help her out through her first part of the quest. They also bump into a mercenary named Kratos, who offers his help to protect the chosen one. And after this whole event, her group decide to ditch Lloyd back in their home village because they don't want him tagging along with their group. However, Lloyd's best friend Genus has made friends with an old woman in the Desian human ranch prison. This causes the Desians to attack their village, and the village elder decides to throw Lloyd out on his keister and banish him for the attack. So now Lloyd has to join up with Colette because he has no place else to go and accompany her on her journey of world regeneration. Of course, along the way, after they visit various temples, Lloyd finds out that this journey will end in Colette's death. He also finds out that this whole mess is deal with the fact that the world is short of mana due to the whole war thousands of years ago, and this whole ritual sacrifice and the whole religion of Martel, it's to keep the world in one piece and to keep human technology at an absolute low. Lloyd decides this is wrong, says screw it, and decides to rebel and destroy the whole apparatus. This, by the way, is a completely original story. A young man thrown out of his home, complete naive blockhead about what the outside world is like, joins a summoner and her guardians to travel throughout the land through various temples, only finding out a little over halfway exactly what's going on, and then decides to rebel against the whole system and destroy it because he thinks that the cure is worse than the poison. That is completely original. I have never heard of a game with a story like that, with the exception of this one. Oh well, there's at least one big difference between this and Final Fantasy X. In Final Fantasy X, your summoner dressed in traditional Japanese outfit and had a nice rack on her. You can't say the same thing about Tales of Symphonia. Ah, damn it! But don't worry, folks, it only rips off Final Fantasy X for the first part of the game. After you clear the first part of the game, Lloyd finds out there's a parallel world called Tessie Alla that's parallel to his world of Silverant, and that there used to be one giant world until the Carlon tree died, and then they got split into two worlds that are separated due to problems with a giant tree. Now we're ripping off Final Fantasy V. But there's one big difference between this and Final Fantasy V. In Final Fantasy V, the main villain was the stupid tree itself. Here, it's a guy named Yggdrasil, so it's not a giant stupid tree. Ah, damn it! Of course, while the game's main plot is kinda satirizing and ripping off Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy X, that's not to say that the game's script entirely is just based off of them. The game does a good job of making these characters unique and funny. The game has a great sense of humor about it, and it's always constantly making me laugh at some point or another. For example, Lloyd is a blockhead, and there's plenty of humor about the fact that Lloyd will oftentimes rush in, swords out, when the situation might call for calm and strategy. There's humor in this, but it's also part of his character to be a bit rash. Colette also has the dumb blonde persona. She's clumsy, she kind of forgets things, she doesn't understand what others are talking about. But at the same time, she's also the worrywart of the group. She worries about what happens to her people, and when she wants to sacrifice herself, but Lloyd gets in the way and saves her, and things go to pot, she starts to blame herself for the fact that she now wants to live, and until Lloyd can find a way to make everything better, people will continue to suffer because she didn't sacrifice herself. These really make the characters deep, and each character has their own story and even side quests to expand their story, so it's a really, really great setup. However, one of the weakest points of this game does go to the fact that it does focus on its characters, and that does screw up a few of the plot twists. For example, as you progress through the game, you will encounter this Desian ranch, which Lloyd will go in to try to free its prisoners. When he encounters the Desian commander of the ranch, he tells Lloyd that he knows what happens to his parents and that his father killed his mother. At this point, we see the usual stoic and cold Kratos get really, really angry. And then, after the ranch is destroyed, we see a scene like this.
Lloyd, お前の母を殺したのはお前の父だ。それで仇を取ったと言い切ってしまっていいのか？
父さんが母さんを殺さなければならない状況を作ったのはクバルだ。そうだろう。
そうだな。バカなこと。
Geez, I wonder based off that conversation if Kratos is in fact Lloyd's father, and we won't find out this fact until after he betrays the group. How much am I right on these counts? And to be fair, this type of twist is really hard to pull off. You have to lay down the cards to let people know that there is something wrong with this character, but they don't know exactly what until the twist comes. However, if you lay too many cards down too early, people will figure out the twist way before it happens, and therefore it isn't a surprise. That's what happens in this game, folks. And there's a good reason for it, though. The writers of this game cared more about the characters and you bonding with them than the actual plot themselves. In this case, they want you to learn more about Kratos. Yes, he's cool as ice. Yes, he's manipulative. Yes, he has tons of secrets. However, he is still human, and having his estranged son, which he does care for, hate him, kind of made him want to ask that question, because Lloyd just learned something really dark about the past, and hence he had to ask the question, and you can see the character is kind of relieved. So all in all, it's a really good character writing, but it's not really great for the plot. That said, I'd rather have too many cards on the table than not have any, which is the case of a similar plot twist in Walt Disney's Frozen, which I thought was lamer than this one. Alright, let's move on to the final character I want to talk to you about, which is the main villain, Yggdrasil. I would like to say there's a lot to this character. They try to set him off as being someone who used to be like Lloyd, young, idealistic, wanting to save the world and protect everybody in it. However, immortality mixed in with the death of someone he cared about has driven him to the wrong side of batcrap crazy. Unfortunately, what he really just comes off as is the typical wah wah wah, the world isn't perfect, so I'm going to destroy it and recreate a new one, which I believe is perfect, and if it involves killing 99.9% of the people who live on the planet in order to achieve this dream, well, it just sucks to be them. Now granted, people with utopian visions can be dangerous. Some of the most villains in real history have been people with utopian visions. However, we see this just so much in JRPGs and anime that it just comes off as being completely forgettable in this case. Kind of a shame. There are points where I did kind of like the guy as a villain, but we've just seen so many of this type of villains in Final Fantasy games and other JRPGs that he's completely forgettable. The game story as a whole is still pretty good. Don't get my nitpicks of saying that the story is bad. It's just incredibly JRPG cliched. However, the characters are strong, they keep it afloat, and there's plenty of humorous bits. So to say that I enjoyed the characters and the story more in Tales of Symphonia than I did in Final Fantasy X would be true, and that's saying something because Final Fantasy X had a really strong story and characters. It's just Tales has something different and has a little bit more of an edge. Add in the fact that the battle system and most of the rest of the game is real fun, and you got a classic game worth checking out. As far as my thoughts on the sequel go, let's just say I really hate these characters. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I did a complete review of Tales of Symphonia. If you haven't watched it, feel free to click on the thumbnail. You can also feel free to leave a comment or click on the subscribe button. This is Tommy the Keyblade Master signing out.